Do you want to spice up your full-on Psytrance tracks? How about the progressive drop? Today I want to give you two examples of how you can use them in your tracks to make them more interesting. So this is the first one. This is actually from a recent video in which I explained this fill here, so you're already familiar with the context here. But I'm going to play it from this point here. This is a little breakdown, and then we'll explore together how it functions in the track. So as you can hear, this progressive drop is used to go from the breakdown, from the lowest point of the energy in the track to one of the highest points of the energy in the track, with this crazy lead here and all of the high drums coming in and the rolling bass line coming back in. So what the progressive drop really allows you to do is just that. Change the energy levels nicely and slowly into something more high energy. And yes, you could do this with a rolling bass line as well. If you put a rolling bass line in here, it would probably also work great if you just adapt it a little bit. You might need to change some of the sounds around, obviously, maybe add some more one-shots, maybe some other stuff. And I might end up doing that even for this bass line that is in here. But it is nice to have a little bit of variation between the rolling bass and this progressive bass over here. So just quickly to go over the sound design, both of them are actually presets that come from my latest preset pack for Serum. This is the aggro slide preset, and this is the one that is doing the sliding bass. You can see I just moved around some of the macros. I may have changed one or two things about the sound design during the production. And the same is true for the other bass line. This is the offbeat bass line, the very strong one. And this is actually the pre-processed preset. That's a very hard thing to say, but this is from the same preset pack, Psychedelic Essentials Volume 3. Now, just quickly want to say that if you're thinking at this point about buying the preset pack, right now is the time to do so, because I'm actually running a sale at the end of the year. I don't know the full details yet, but I'll make a graphic for the video so that you can see the dates and the percentage off. And you can find all of that on my Gumroad page, which will be linked in the description as well as in the cards. With that being said, let's get back into the video. And again, I just changed some macros around. I set the note length a little bit higher, so this would actually play as an 8 note instead of a 16 note, because it's initially made as a rolling bass line. But you can adapt it in this offbeat bass line here, and with a lot of stereo processing and a lot of other processing on both of them. They're just both going into the main group of bass lines, which is controlling the transition filters, the volume, and some filtering effects as well. These are the effects that I'm using in the fill here that are just for the rolling bass line. So they don't actually apply here. So that's the sound design out of the way and the way that I'm adding them to the project. The fact that I have everything in one group is really nice, because I can use the same filters on all of the different bass lines for my transitioning. And as well as that, I also have a volume control for all of my bass lines together. But when it comes to the idea, as I said, it's really about uplifting that energy level. In this case, I went with something very melodic in here. And that is something that you'll often see, because when it comes to the sound design, I like to change things up as well. Throughout the rest of these tracks, I have a lot of different sequences. We already heard one before. This is this very aggressive, very energetic sequence. And while it's true that there's a little bit of a melody to it, it isn't as melodic as the element that we hear in the breakdown and in this first part of the drop here. And that's because really here you have a lot more space to do a lot more melodic stuff. Because you're changing up the bass line, you can also change up the sound design a little bit, and then that section will stand out from the track even more. Now, I like to do this after my breakdown, because that's really the point where the track is maybe getting a little bit boring from using the same bass line over and over again. And because we're after a breakdown, it isn't so sudden of a transition going into it. What that means is, imagine if you had a rolling bass line just like this here, and you suddenly went into the other bass line, it can get very jarring, because you really need to work up to it. What you can do is add a lot of build-up in here and really have a long fill, or maybe have a very strong fill idea that helps transition into that other bass line very, very well. In that case, you can maybe pull it off, but even then it may be too jarring of a transition. It is much easier to make it work from a musical standpoint if you give yourself a little bit of that space here that we're doing here. In this case, the way that the project is set up in terms of the filtering is that when it comes to this part here, this is filtered out. So this is much lower in frequency content and also in volume, as you can see, which means that already here we're kind of transitioning out. We don't really have that full kick and bass anymore. And then in here, when it is coming back, it has some time to transition in and slowly it becomes more and more noticeable. So as you can hear, you have plenty of time to get used to the idea of a new bass line being there. Here's the second example. Say that in this case we want to transition from something like this to something like this. As you can hear, that first section is very gritty in sound design and that second version is a lot happier and it uses some chords. So transitioning between those two sections traditionally is a little bit of a hard thing. But in this case, there's the breakdown and this progressive drop in between. Now obviously it wasn't written that way in the sense that I didn't write this section, then this section, and then came up with the stuff in between. I just linearly wrote this through. But this is a very good example of how this kind of progressive drop can be used to transition from one very gritty element into something very happy, or just two very contrasting ideas. Now I want to do a separate video on storytelling in Psytrance, and maybe I'll bring up this example as well in that video. It's mainly going to focus on a different production, but this is a good example of storytelling in Psytrance as well, and specifically of the musical kind. Because again here, in the breakdown and in the drop that is after it, there's going to be a very keen melodic idea. But for now, I'll just play it so that you can get an idea of what we're dealing with here. As you can hear, it essentially transitions between this part and this part in a very slow manner, but in between there's this very strong musical idea. And again, in this case, it really makes this section stand out together with the bass line that is in here. Again, quickly for the sound design nerds, this is a different configuration of my aggro slide bass line from the same preset pack that we saw before. One of the key benefits of having a preset pack like this is that it's a no-brainer when you want to introduce it into the track, in the sense that it doesn't take a long time to design a new bass line. You just pop it in there and see if the idea fits. Usually that is the way that I like to write, in the sense that I write very quickly and I don't want to spend a lot of time working on one sound, so that I don't have the situation that I could be writing this part of the track and it just doesn't work out, it just doesn't fit. I can quickly just test the idea, and then if it does work, then I can worry about the details of how the sound should actually work in the track. So as you can tell, progressive drops really can add some interest and some unique sections to your track. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I mainly just wanted to show some of the examples because I'm actually really proud of these two sections. I think they sound really cool. And I think part of that does have to do with the fact that they're so unique. So that's going to be the video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.